I usually don't watch currently airing anime. There are a lot of reasons for this, enough for its own video, which I may do at some point, but I decided to give currently airing anime another go with Dr. Stone, and I am glad I did so. It is charming, somewhat educational, and mostly different. Not to say that it's the most unique thing ever, can anything even claim to be that anymore, but it's refreshingly unlike most other anime series, especially shonen series. Having been published in Weekly Shonen Jump since 2017, the anime announcement of Dr. Stone earlier this year was met with a lot of enthusiasm. I had previously only heard the name before, having stopped following everything in Shonen Jump except for One Piece years ago, but as the anime started and aired more and more episodes, the hype got to me, and I decided to give it a shot. One of the reasons for my interest, besides the hype, was my complete inability to understand what it was about, and that is a huge selling point for the series. It's not terribly easy to explain to people, which might make it seem convoluted or strange, but really, it's just that Dr. Stone is thrilling, and people don't want to give away too much. That makes this video a little hard to make. I want to discuss the show and why you should watch it, but at the same time, I don't want to ruin anything. I'm going to try to explain the bare bones of the story as seen in the first episode, before moving on to potential spoilers. Here goes. The story starts in our world, in or around the modern day. Our main characters are 3 high school students. Senku, a science-loving and somewhat mischievous boy with crazy hair. Taiju, his simple-minded but trustworthy friend. And Yuzuriha, a girl that Taiju has had a crush on for years. Taiju is about to confess his love to Yuzuriha when a mysterious wave envelops the entire world and turns every human to stone. We flash forward in time, through centuries, millennia even. Buildings crumble to dust, forests reclaim the land, and civilization is no more. We then see Taiju waking up, the stone covering his body cracking open and falling off of him. He shortly thereafter finds Senku, who had woken up 6 months prior, and the two decide to work together to survive and, using Senku's scientific knowledge, bring humanity out of the Stone Age and back to the modern era, one step at a time. It is a wild premise. It instantly seems magnanimous and bold, with a story that could stretch on for years and years. Going from nothing to a world of electricity and video games and, indeed, smartphones? How could such a thing even be possible in one person's lifetime? But the story works because it has the ultra genius of Senku, who has apparently memorized every bit of scientific knowledge he could find. He knows what every plant is, what every rock is, how to mix and match things to create necessary items. He brings hope to the concept, and while his amount of knowledge is completely unbelievable, his type of character is a staple of the shonen genre, so it's not hard for an audience familiar with Naruto and One Piece to accept him. It's just that instead of being incredibly strong or having unlimited energy, he has a vast, ungodly amount of information that happens to be incredibly useful in the situation. Seeing Senku describe what he plans to do and how he plans to do it is thrilling, and it really hooks you. It's an odd mix of reality and fantasy, seeing a person talk about how to make modern things using a Stone Age setup. It's so far removed from what our lives are now that it feels fake, but it's real. Some of the techniques discussed in the show are things our ancestors did. After all, civilization has been going on for thousands of years, and everything we do, everything we can do, is built upon the hard work and science of the past. But it's easy to forget that, until you see just how cool it is to do. While not an educational guide on its own, Dr. Stone could definitely be used in science classes to help get students interested. One of the reasons I know next to nothing of the field is because none of my teachers ever made it terribly interesting. Nothing was ever fun. There were no connections between the things we were learning and real-life applications. Dr. Stone helps alleviate this problem by showing how Senku's scientific knowledge is useful, how it directly relates to what needs to be done. Now, I'm not saying that a 7th grade science class should ever learn how to make alcohol using grapes, but there are really cool things in the show that could get kids interested in the world of science. Now, from here on out, it's going to be hard to discuss the show without spoilers, so if you haven't seen up to episode 4, you might want to bail out now. Just wanted to warn you. So, The premise of Dr. Stone is bringing humanity from the Stone Age back to the Space Age, but quickly that struggle gets pushed to the side. In episode 2, the creator of Tsukasa is introduced, the strongest primate high schooler. Having created a revival fluid to free other people from their stone prisons, Senku and Taiju are forced to revive Tsukasa when they are chased by lions. Unable to defend themselves, they trust Tsukasa, who literally punches a lion to death with a single blow. This act sets off the major conflict, because even though Tsukasa is a great hunter and provider, he is also a sociopathic murderer, destroying many of the stone people he comes across. He believes that the stone world they live in is a paradise, and that the old system doesn't need to come back. He essentially believes that might makes right, and that the older generation of adults that ran things in the past don't belong in his paradise. So he destroys them, which is tantamount to killing. Seeing the danger in Tsukasa's thinking, and realizing that Tsukasa will probably eventually kill him, Senku enacts a plan for him and Taiju, and the newly revived Yuzuriha, to escape and run away until they can stop Tsukasa and his scheme. The only way to stop the strongest person in the world? With guns, of course! Or at least gunpowder. Senku heads to a volcano to get sulfur and start on the path to making gunpowder. This shift in tone sets the show up as versatile. It could have had several stories of Senku and Taiju just surviving, or Tsukasa seeming to be just a good person until it revealed him as the bad guy. But that would have killed the speed of the series, and its quick pace is part of the appeal. Things never flounder because something is always happening. A new challenge is always there for Senku to overcome. He can never get completely comfortable. The opposing ideas between Tsukasa and Senku are also valuable, a way of broadly having differing philosophical beliefs. Tsukasa cares about people and doesn't want a corrupt system, but it comes at the cost of life, by murdering people, and safety, because without scientific advancement, life becomes a lot more risky. Disease is a huge concern without antibiotics and medical supplies. On the other hand, Senku doesn't seem to care too much about anything other than science, but he is still trying to improve everyone's lives. The advancement of civilization, for better or for worse, has led to far more people being alive now than thousands of years ago, and the chances of staying alive are far higher. The two characters cannot get along, they cannot find common ground, but it's because they represent two diametrically opposed philosophies about how the world should be. While Tsukasa is clearly a villain, it's easy to relate to him and maybe even agree with him. And Senku can be unlikable, even if he is trying to make things better. In episode 4, our trio sees smoke signals, signifying other living humans in the world. This, again, broadens the range of the show, going from Senku and Taiju just surviving, to Tsukasa appearing as somewhat of a savior, to Yuzuriha joining the group and Tsukasa being revealed as a villain, to potentially other humans, all in 4 episodes? The show's story dynamically changes with each episode, and instead of veering all over the place, it instead moves forward, progressing in a natural way. There is no chance to get bored, no chance to predict how things are going to go in such a way that the series becomes trite. Everything is exciting, and much like in the world of science, even setbacks can foster immense growth. If you haven't checked out Dr. Stone yet, I highly recommend you do. It's a shonen series that is completely unlike every shonen series you've ever seen. It's funny, it's smart, and it might even teach you a thing or two. Just like it taught me to build the giant statue of myself in bronze, so that it'll stand for eons. Oh, for that day to come.